Sirin Crowin. The name sounds like something the ocean itself would whisper before it swallows you. Scottish Highland legend called it the largest creature ever to exist. Not an exaggeration for dramatic effect. A Gaelic verse described it swallowing 7 whales whole. 7. Not fish, whales. And then it disguised itself as a small fish, lured fishermen close, then revealed its true size. By then, the boat was already gone. No measurements, no fossils, just coastlines full of people who stopped fishing. That's the thing about the monsters you can't see. They don't need to be real to be effective. They just need to be believed. And Scotland believed hard enough to carve this thing into oral tradition for centuries. But Scotland's nightmare was polite compared to what Cornwall was dealing with. Morgar, Cornish for sea giant. And southwestern England didn't invent this one from nothing. They photographed it. 1976. A woman called Mary F. sent images to a local newspaper showing a long-necked creature surfacing off Falmouth Bay. The paper printed them. Scientists dismissed them. Locals didn't. Sightings had already been rolling in since the 1920s. Descriptions consistent across decades. Long neck, humped back, roughly 15 to 20 meters of something that shouldn't exist in British coastal waters. No confirmed identity, no explanation. The photographs disappeared into archives. The sightings didn't stop. Whatever Morgar is, it didn't get the memo about not existing. Across the world, another culture was seeing something similar, except this one didn't move. Bakekujira, Japan's ghost whale, a skeleton, translucent, silent, moving through the water at night with no flesh, no sound, no reason to exist. Japanese coastal folklore describes fishermen encountering this apparition offshore, surrounded by strange birds and fish that also looked wrong, also looked dead. Nobody who followed it came back the same. Nobody who tried to harpoon it succeeded. The weapons passed through, because you cannot kill something that's already dead. The Bakekujira wasn't a predator hunting food. It was a curse hunting the people who killed its kind. An entire culture's guilt about whaling folded into a single horrifying image. A skeleton the size of a ship, drifting, watching. And if Japan's ghost whale is guilt made physical, then Leviathan is something far older and far worse. Leviathan, one of the oldest. Before most sea monsters that entered written record, there was this, though even Leviathan had predecessors. The Canaanite serpent Lotan and the Babylonian chaos dragon Tiamat predate the Hebrew texts by centuries, and scholars believe Leviathan grew directly from their shadow. But what the Hebrew tradition did with it was something else entirely. Ancient texts didn't describe it as a creature, they described it as a problem, a being so cosmically wrong that its existence required a direct response from God. Breath that set the ocean on fire, scales that blocked light, a single terrible mouth ringed with teeth that Job 41 called unchallengeable up close. It wasn't a predator, it was a statement, a symbol of chaos so complete that the ordered world couldn't contain it. Psalm 74 describes God crushing its heads, plural, suggesting something with a shape too large and too wrong for a single form to contain. The book of Job called it unchallengeable. Psalms called it something God made to play in the sea, which is somehow more disturbing because that means something keeps it as a pet. South America had its own answer. Yakumama, mother of the water, Amazonian legend. A serpent so vast it created currents just by breathing. Indigenous accounts from the Amazon basin describe something up to 40 meters long, lurking in the deepest river channels, capable of generating whirlpools, capable of pulling entire canoes under without surfacing. Travelers were warned to blow a horn before entering certain waterways. If the horn echoed back wrong, you turned around, because Yakumama didn't chase prey. It waited, perfectly still on the riverbed until something moved overhead. Then, it opened its mouth and the water did the rest. No thrashing, no roar, just absence where a boat used to be. The Amazon still holds species science hasn't cataloged. The deeper channels remain unmapped. Yakumama might be mythology. It might be a memory. The line between those two things gets complicated in water you can't see the bottom of. But if Yakumama is patient, the next one is something entirely different. The next one hates me. Nuckelavee. This isn't a sea monster in the traditional sense. It's worse. Scottish Orcadian mythology describes a creature that emerged from the sea, which is the important part, because the ocean created something so awful it inflicted it on the land. No skin, literally no skin. Black blood visible through exposed veins and yellow muscle. A horse's body fused to a humanoid torso, one giant eye, breath that could wilt crops and spread plague across entire regions. The Nuckelavee didn't hunt for food. It was destroyed because destruction was its nature. Entire harvests failed. Livestock died. Communities relocated. The only protection was crossing running fresh water, because the Nuckelavee couldn't follow. So coastal Scottish communities essentially lived in a fortress mentality, organized around rivers and streams that could stop something that came out of the sea to end them. A monster that doesn't eat you. It just erases everything around you until you have nothing left. England built something smaller but somehow more intimate. Grindelo, Yorkshire. The English North. This one lived specifically in ponds, bogs, and the shallow water under riverbanks. Small, not enormous. Long fingers, green skin, the grip strength to drag children underwater and hold them there. No mythology around cosmic chaos. No fire breath, no plague. Just don't go near the water alone. The Grindelo was parental weaponized fear, a nursery bogey that appeared in 18th and 19th century regional folklore as a story told to children to keep them away from drowning hazards in a landscape full of dangerous standing water. Young as folklore creatures go, but effective enough to survive into literature, embedded deep enough in regional memory that J.K. Rowling pulled it directly into Harry Potter without needing to explain it. A small thing wading in shallow water is somehow more viscerally terrifying than a sea serpent the size of a ship, because you can intellectually dismiss something you'll never encounter. You cannot dismiss something that lives in the pond at the edge of your village. And then there's the one that's not ancient at all, Ningen. This one was born on the internet. 2002, Japanese message board channel. Anonymous posts from people claiming to be on Antarctic research vessels, describing enormous pale humanoid shapes moving under the ice. Bipedal, white, estimated at 20 to 30 meters. Human-like facial features. No official report. No oral tradition. No scripture. Just accounts that multiplied across forums. Descriptions staying eerily consistent across people who claimed they'd never spoken to each other. Scientists misidentified marine life. The stories kept coming. Here's why the Ningen belongs on this list, even though it isn't ancient. Every creature here started somewhere. A fisherman who saw something. A coastal community that needed to explain disappearances. A culture that required a shape for its fear. The Ningen is what happens when that exact process runs in real time, in the digital age, on a planet where the Antarctic Ocean remains the least explored body of water we have. It's not mythology yet. It might become it. The mechanism is identical. Fear finds a shape. The shape spreads. Eventually, nobody remembers who saw it first. Here's what these 8 share. Not one requires a fossil. The Sirin Crowin lived in a Gaelic verse about 7 swallowed whales. Morgar lived in a photograph nobody could explain. Bakekujira lived in the guilt of coastal communities. Leviathan lived in texts old enough to have their own ancestors. Yakumama lived with the warning blown into a horn before entering the wrong river. Nuckelavee lived in the organizational logic of communities that built their lives around rivers that could stop it. Grindylow lived in 3 seconds of parental hesitation near standing water. Ningen lives in anonymous posts and the particular unease of darkness beneath Antarctic ice. Every single one exists because humans encountered something they couldn't explain or needed something to carry a fear too large for ordinary language. The ocean is 4 kilometers deep on average. The deepest point hits nearly 11. We have mapped more of Mars than the ocean floor. Whatever these cultures were afraid of, the water gave them permission to believe it. It still does. Drop a comment. Which of these stays mythological forever? And which one do you think might be real? Subscribe if you made it this far. The next one goes deeper.